Well, for episode 18, was JK Rowling misunderstood here on Ceasefire Podcast? Going to be breaking down the history of her comments, her new podcast, why is she claiming she was misunderstood? But we also want to ask you if you like the content and want to see more of it, to head to ceasefirepodcast.com for all the extras that we do, behind the scenes and debriefs. And I'm here with my good friend Andrew. We typically do two-part episodes where we break down a situation first and then we dive a little bit deeper from our own beliefs and our own ideas. And I'm going to let him kind of kickstart this video. We need to go through the history of what she said, because it's just been generally accepted and assumed by the culture at large that she is a transphobe and that she has said transphobic things, these wonderful labels that just automatically make somebody a villain. But that's what's happened. And I think it would be helpful to look at these comments she made first before we go to her new comment saying that she's been misunderstood. So take it away, Andrew.
So yeah, she has been in the news quite a bit recently, and obviously, you have been covering this on your gaming channels. The drop of this new game has sparked a whole new spotlight on JK Rowling, with Harry Potter once again sort of being on the forefront of culture, at least in the gaming world, entertainment media world. So yeah, let's go back to June 6, 2020, where Rowling retweeted an op-ed piece that discussed, quote, people who menstruate. And apparently she took issue with the fact that the story did not use the word women. People who menstruate, she says, I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Wumbin? Wimpund? Wumud, she wrote. The initial, and again, I'm just reading an article that I found on Glamour that just has the content of what she wrote.
Right.
This article says that initial tweet garnered a lot of backlash, but the Harry Potter author did not relent and wrote about our views in more detail. If sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth, she tweeted. The idea that women like me, who've been empathetic to trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they're vulnerable in the same way as women, i.e. to male violence, quote, hate, end quote, trans people because they think sex is real and has lived consequences, is a nonsense. She continued. I respect every trans person's right to live any way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. I'd march with you if you were discriminated against on the basis of being trans. At the same time, my life has been shaped by being female. I do not believe it's hateful to say so. End quote.
And I know there was another thing that she wrote. It was more lengthy, that has been summarized as dangerous and, unhelpful or reckless or transphobic. But she wrote that because of these tweets getting so much negative attention. And the part that really bothers me is there's no room here. Like, she's not allowed to say, listen, I love and support trans persons, but I also have my own convictions and beliefs about what it is to be a woman because I'm a woman. Like she's trying to, I think, very fairly carve out space for herself instead of just sort of being assimilated into what the culture would like, which is no, accept this full on. Like, you have to take on this worldview or you are hateful. Like, it doesn't feel like there's even room for discussion. And it's a settled issue. And if you're not on our side, you are a transphobe.
Yes, and that is fallacious reasoning, of course. This entire position is based upon the emotions of people who are transposing their belief structure on others, which, last time I checked, is not cool. That's not a nice thing to do. That's considered, morally reprehensible, especially if you're someone who comes from a Christian background and you do that. So we can actually I can read the longer quote that came after that, where she let's see, June 10th, 2020, she published a more lengthy post and sent out a tweet that read TERF Wars, TERF, which is an acronym that stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. And she says, "This isn't an easy piece to write for reasons that will shortly become clear, but I know it's time to explain myself on an issue surrounded by toxicity. I wrote this without any desire to add to that toxicity." She wrote, "For people who don't know, last December I tweeted my support for Maya Forstater, a tax specialist who'd lost her job for what were deemed, quote, transphobic tweets. She took her case to an employment tribunal, asked the judge to rule on whether a philosophical belief that sex is determined by biology is protected in law, and Judge Taylor ruled that it wasn't. Rowling explains that she became interested in trans issues while researching a character she's writing. Rowling also outlined 5 reasons for being worried about the new trans activism." Okay, there's more to it than that, but obviously, these thoughts, these sentiments were not received well by a number of people, including the 3 main actors, I believe, who responded publicly. I've not read their quotes. I've caught little bits and pieces of this here and there. I haven't been totally paying attention to it until we decided to cover this today. But I feel like what you just articulated is kind of the core of the issue here. If you don't come on board with this very new philosophy of gender that has really, infiltrated society, then yes, you are a bigot, you're a hateful individual, you're a transphobe, and all of the above. And again, fallacious reasoning in the sense that this is a belief structure and a philosophy based upon a lifestyle, an alternative lifestyle of a fringe group of people who don't deserve to be marginalized as lesser than. Let's make that clear. Who don't deserve to be bullied or treated poorly in any way, shape, or form. And that's where the idea of trans hate or transphobe comes from. If you're not supporting their ideas, then you're a part of the problem of these people being oppressed, these people being bullied. Maybe it's wrong to say these people, but
well, yeah.
This group, this group of people. And I, for one, think those are 2 separate issues. What we're talking about here, again, which we've covered in other episodes, is the pushing of a fringe ideology upon the masses, and then expecting the masses to come on board with this ideology, and if they don't, punishing them.
Right.
And I don't agree with any of that. I don't think that's an effective way to run a society, that's for sure. Secondly, this ideology, there's no science behind this. Gender is pretty black and white. I'm sorry, sex. I'm new to all this. Sex is pretty black and white. I understand the idea that there are nuances to gender norms in society, that there's a little bit more gray areas in that discussion. And I'm willing to submit to that. But what JK Rowling is referring to here is the fact that biological women only, not men, can menstruate. And that's it. I mean, it's a black and white thing. And we're having 2 separate discussions here. But I don't interpret anything that she said as being anything but sensitive while still being honest. There are a lot more harsh critical voices out there.
Oh, yeah.
That are saying similar things, maybe in a harsher way. But even then, I think stating an opinion or even stating facts, making a statement in any form that is contradictory to someone else's statement is not hateful. Having a differing opinion than someone else is not hateful. Living your life differently and not recognizing how someone else lives their life in terms of just your own reality is not hateful. So I still don't understand the rhetoric, other than it's a mass manipulation of ideology. and a mass form of propaganda and censorship. Explain it otherwise, Lucas, because I maybe I'm a little slow.
Well, it feels like the world is flipped upside down, because there was a time when the more progressive, more liberal movement was all about science, was all about pushing ideology or religion sort of out of the schools and out of the conversation. You can't push your morality onto us, and we need to follow the science. That was what I heard all of the time growing up from the more liberal progressive side. And they sort of would cast the religious people, the Christians, as these ideologues, as these almost cult-like people that were trying to push their morality onto culture. Everything's flipped upside down now. Now the Christians are the one pointing to neonatal science and the scientific discoveries we've made with children in the womb to be against abortion. And then with respect to transgenderism or gender and sex, it's like, where's the scientific basis for any of this? It's an ideology. It is a belief system that you are trying to browbeat the culture to acquiesce to. It's not, hey, this is what we believe, give us space to believe this. It's, do not at all push back on this or you will be attacked. I mean, imagine being in JK Rowling's position. She's been a woman her whole life, has massive success in an industry that's commonly dominated by men, right? Writing, entertainment, that's been a common theme for feminists to say, hey, make space for us to be just as successful, to get paid just as much. And when she gets to the top of that ladder, people are trying to kick it out from underneath of her. And it's like, wait a minute, hang on a minute. You can't erode what it is to be a woman. That means a lot to me. And to be told that you're hateful for doing that, I think that's a form of linguistic violence. You're essentially saying, listen, we know this is really meaningful and important to you. Think about all the feminist movements up to now. Well, no, we're the movement now. If you don't come on our team, then you're going to be labeled as hateful. And if I was on the side of being sort of, maybe I was a transgendered person, I would look at everybody with a skeptical eye at this point. All the celebrities that are going along with this and throwing JK under the bus and going along with the idea of like, yeah, let's paint her as a hateful person, a harmful, awful person. Do you honestly think every celebrity that goes along with this, every pundit, every person on Twitter, every blogger that goes along with this, do you think they all genuinely believe it? Or do you think they're going along with it because they're scared? And then that would make,
because they're scared,
right?
Obviously.
So do you have any true allies, or do you have people that have gone along with this because they're terrified of what's going to happen to them if they don't? I remember once telling a guy he was trying to convince this girl to stay with him. And I said, brother, if you get what you want, is that going to be a healthy relationship? If you browbeat somebody into staying with you, you're always going to wonder if they truly love you. You're always going to wonder if you really, truly have a bond because you broke them down and they acquiesce to the relationship. That's not healthy. It's not healthy to have friendships or allyship or cultural bonds and relationships that are won through threat. Like, aren't you always going to be skeptical that these people are really allies to you? Or are they just going along with the strongest voices of the day? They're just going along with the current mob trend. They'll abandon you at the drop of a hat because they've abandoned any kind of a traditional ideal of sex and gender. They've abandoned what could have been friendships. Imagine being JK and watching all these kids that have billionaire status now, right? I don't know if they're billionaires. Let's just say millionaire. They've got millionaire status because of what she created, and to just turn on her. Like, that's all it took was a couple of tweets and her standing her ground on what it is, what she thinks a woman is. And now she's evil and they all have to go along with the trend. So I can't imagine actually thinking you're winning allies or friends through this. You're basically just scaring everybody into either shutting up or going along, which is just a terrible way, I think, to foster cultural conversations about anything.
Agreed. And that's what we're attempting to do here, is to have sane conversations that are not, just rooted in emotion. And I understand we live in an era where everybody is a victim, and everything is about you. but perhaps it's not. You know what I mean? I just find it so ironic that the number one criticism that people outside the Christian faith have towards Christians is the fact that they're trying to force their ideology on other people, and it's our way or the highway. It's exclusionary. And this whole movement, by definition, is not inclusionary; it is exclusionary. Because if you are telling people, if you don't come on board with what we believe, then you will be punished. That is exclusionary. That is the opposite of what you purport to stand for. And again, tell me how I'm incorrect here in stating that.
Devil's advocate, they would say, I know what some people are going to say in our comments. They're going to run to our comments. If they make it to the 16-minute mark in this video, I'll be shocked, because the first thing people are going to do typically in this instance is say, she wasn't misunderstood, she's transphobic, and the proof is in what she's done with her money. If you support her Harry Potter video games or whatever, she's used her money to support organizations that hurt trans persons. I have exhaustively researched this, and that is an unsubstantiated claim. There is no evidence whatsoever she's given a dime to any bad organization. She's on record as being in support of transgendered persons, and as she said, I would go to war for you if I felt like your rights were being taken away. But that lie is just accepted hook, line, and sinker. But that's what people would say to you. They would say, well, no, of course you have to be intolerant of intolerance, and she's intolerant and hateful, and she's spending her money and her fortune to hurt trans persons. I literally saw a guy on Twitter say this, because I was, the Hogwarts Legacy video game was causing all this chaos on Twitter. Nowhere else, by the way. It's going to break all commercial sales records this year, probably. It's going to be the most commercially successful game, only maybe undone by one game, Diablo 4, which even that I'm doubtful about.
Interesting.
And it only seemed to catch fire on Twitter. And this guy said, listen, you can't support the game because she uses her money for bad organizations. And a guy said, listen, I'm trying to be educated here. Who has she given money to? What organizations? He's like, I genuinely would like to know. He wasn't being a jerk. He was being investigative. And the guy said, use Google. You can find it yourself. And I said, wait a minute. It's like, you're out here telling people she gives money to organizations, but you can't name them? You can't tell us the names. You can't tell us how much money, because it's not true. He's been propagandized. He believes it. No, she gives money. And I brought this up in one of my gaming streams, and I said, listen, I looked into that. And that is a false claim. And the people that had been claiming that suddenly shifted the goalposts and started saying, well, Harry Potter used to always be about being accepted for who you are, and it was really diverse and a really accepting community, and because of what she said, now it's not that anymore. It's like, well, so as soon as your claim gets debunked, it's like the whole goalpost just shift to some other form of, oh, these people don't feel accepted and welcome now in this community. And it's like, the irony of that is not something she did. It's something these false claims did about her. That created the unwelcoming thing. She's out here screaming that she loves transgendered persons and she wants to welcome them in, and you have people creating another narrative. And that's why they don't feel welcome. They don't feel welcome because of dishonesty and deception, not because of anything she actually said or did. So we haven't even looked at the clip yet of her saying she feels misunderstood.
Yeah, let's watch that.
We should watch this clip. It's gonna be on the tail end here. I'm gonna have a hard time watching this because I already watched a couple seconds of it, and the guy hosting this it's rough. Let's check it out.
I never set out to upset anyone. However, I was not uncomfortable with getting off my pedestal.
Harry Potter author JK Rowling is doubling back on her anti-trans comments, claiming on the upcoming podcast, The Witch Trials of JK Rowling, that her past remarks over the last 3 years were misunderstood.
keep in mind, he already said that her past remarks are anti-trans. So it's...
This is not unbiased reporting.
Yeah. So not talking about her controversial comments or her comments that drew criticism. He's labeled them as anti-trans and makes a nice little face at the camera so that we all know what he thinks.
Good moment you capture there. Sweet.
Yeah. He's
sweet,
like
necklace, bro. I like your chain.
You've ruined your legacy. Oh, you could have been beloved forever, but you chose to say this. And I think you could not have misunderstood me more profoundly.
The podcast is said to provide unprecedented candor and depth about the controversies surrounding her, from book bans to debates on gender and sex, and will include interviews with Rowling's supporters and critics, journalists, historians, clinicians, and more. And while many Harry Potter stars, including Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson, have spoken out against Rowling's past anti-trans remarks, it seems a new actor is being caught up in Rowling's controversies. Sebastian Croft, who stars in Netflix's LGBTQ+ series Heartstopper, it's so good, provides the voice of the playable character in the new Harry Potter game Hogwarts Legacy. And while the game offers Hogwarts' first ever trans character, Serona Ryan, the game was hit with some major backlash, causing Croft to tweet out, "I was cast in this project over 3 years ago, back when all Harry Potter was to me was the magical world I grew up with. This was long before I was aware of JK Rowling's views. I believe wholeheartedly that trans women are women and trans men are men." Now he followed up by stating, "I know far more now than I did 3 years ago, and hope to learn far more in the next 3. I'm really sorry to anyone hurt by this announcement. There is no LGB without the T."
So it's remarkable that they were attacking anybody that had anything to do with the project. They were like, anybody that was a part of that video game was getting attacked. It was a stunning display of just no self-awareness. This is all about love and compassion and empathy. And this guy is like, I got hired for that 3 years ago. What do you want me to do? You know? Well, I mean, can I say it? Wouldn't true conviction have required him to just not do it, to drop the contract? Because she made the remarks in 2020. There's no way he recorded all his voice lines before she said all that. Like, that was just a really safe response to be like, brother, that check was fat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was a Harry Potter project.
I mean, dude, there's so much spin in all these quotes and all this. I mean, there are so many angles in this piece of media we just watched right here. I mean, and agendas and all kinds of wackiness. Oh, I think we're almost ready here for the next segment where we can take the gloves off a little bit.
Yeah, I think we could move on to the next segment. So if you enjoyed this first part, we like to break it into 2 parts. And the first 2 parts are totally free. We do have ceasefirepodcast.com. That'll take you to the Patreon. You can pay to be a part of the debrief. You basically are a producer of the show. You're a part of what's going on, suggestions, submit content for us to react to, or just get a look behind the scenes of what we think of each episode after we're done doing it, especially maybe when we have a guest. So we appreciate you watching this video. Be sure to check out all the other videos. We will see you in the next one.